was a man standing on my porch at 3 in the morning. I could see him clearly on my phone. The doorbell camera had him lit up green, facing the door, not moving. But when I went downstairs and looked through the window, the porch was empty. He was still there on the screen in my hand. He just wasn't there in the world. Welcome back. Tonight, 3 true stories about the little cameras we put up to feel safe. The ones that watch our doors and our driveways and our children while they sleep. They're supposed to show us there's nothing out there. Sometimes they show us the opposite. Let's begin. I bought the video doorbell after a package went missing. That's the whole reason. I wasn't frightened of anything. I lived in a decent neighborhood with my daughter, who was 7 at the time, and I wanted to catch whoever was walking off with deliveries. That's all it was ever supposed to be. A little camera, a little peace of mind. For a few months, it was exactly that. It caught the mail carrier, the neighbor's cat, a raccoon that came by every Tuesday like it had a schedule. I'd get the little chime on my phone, glance at it, and smile. It became background noise. That's important, I think. It became something I trusted without looking closely. The first night I looked closely was a Tuesday in the fall. I got a motion alert at 3:04 in the morning. Half asleep, I assumed it was the raccoon, and I almost didn't check. But something made me open the app. And it wasn't the raccoon. It was a man, standing on my porch, facing the door, perfectly still. He was tall in dark clothes with a hood or a hat that kept his face out of the light. And he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't knocking, wasn't trying the handle, wasn't looking around the way a person casing a house would. He was just standing there square to the door, the way you'd stand if you were waiting to be let in. My heart started going. I sat straight up in bed, and I did the thing you'd do. I went to the top of the stairs, and I looked down at the front door, at the frosted glass beside it, and there was no shadow. No shape, nothing. I crept down and I looked through the window. The porch was empty. But when I looked back down at my phone, he was still there, still on the camera, still facing the door, standing exactly where my own eyes told me no one was standing. I told myself it was a glitch, a frozen frame, a cached image, a smudge on the lens that looked like a person in the dark. I convinced myself so well that I went back to bed. And in the morning, in the daylight, with my daughter eating cereal, it seemed obviously ridiculous. Of course it was a glitch. Then it happened again the next night, and the night after that. Always between 3 and 3:30. Always the same man in the same spot, facing the door, holding completely still for as long as I watched. Sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. The camera logged him his motion over and over, even though he never seemed to move. And every single time when I went down and looked with my own eyes, the porch was empty. I stopped sleeping through the night. I'd lie there waiting for the 3 a.m. chime, and it always came. I called the camera company. They found nothing wrong with the device. I called the police, and I felt insane doing it because what do you say? There's a man on my camera who isn't on my porch. They came, they were polite, they found nothing, and I saw the look they gave each other. After that, I stopped trying to convince anyone. I started trying to catch him instead. I bought a second camera and set it up inside, aimed out the front window at the porch from a completely different angle on a completely different network. My thinking was simple. If it was a glitch in the doorbell, the second camera would show an empty porch, and I'd finally have proof that I was imagining the whole thing. So the next night at 3, when the chime came, I pulled up both feeds side by side. The doorbell showed him standing there facing the door, and the second camera, the indoor one aimed at that same porch from 6 feet away, showed him too. From the side now, the same tall shape, the same terrible stillness. 2 cameras, 2 angles. One man who was not, when I threw open the door, standing anywhere at all. The night it ended, I was watching him on the app, the way I did now every night, this awful ritual, and for the first time in weeks, he moved. Slowly, he raised one arm, and he pointed. Not at the door, not at the camera. He turned slightly, and he pointed up and to the side, at the second floor. At the window of my daughter's room, and my phone buzzed with a notification from the app, one I'd never seen before because I had never set the feature up, had never entered a single name or a single face. The notification said, "Familiar face detected." The camera knew him. It had seen him enough times, close enough, clearly enough, to decide that he belonged. We moved 3 weeks later. I took the camera down myself, and I have never, in the years since, put another one up, because I finally understood what that little machine had been trying to tell me every night at 3 in the morning. It wasn't broken. It was working perfectly. It was showing me something that was really there. I just couldn't see it. That camera only ever watched one porch. The next family's cameras watched an entire empty house while they were 500 miles away on vacation, and learned one clip at a time exactly how many rooms stood between the front door and the stairs. They'd set them up in the main rooms, the living room, the kitchen, the upstairs hallway, motion alerts on. Even the dog was gone. They'd boarded him at the kennel, so the house was truly empty, locked up tight. Nobody home. The first alert came on their second night away. Living room camera, just after midnight. She was in a hotel bed and her phone lit up, motion detected. She opened it half expecting to see a curtain moving in a draft. The clip showed the living room, dark and still. Nothing moving. But the camera had triggered on something. She figured it was headlights sweeping across the window. Easy answer. She went back to sleep. The next night, more alerts, and this time they came in a sequence. Living room, 1240. Kitchen, 1252. Bottom of the stairs, 110. Upstairs hallway, 124. One after another, spaced out like footsteps through a house. Like something walking slowly from the front of the home to the back and then up. Every clip showed an empty room. But the motion kept tripping, camera to camera, following a path only a body could make. She called a neighbor and asked him to drive by. He did. He walked the perimeter with a flashlight, every door locked, every window intact. The house sealed and dark and empty, exactly as they'd left it. He even let himself in with the spare key and checked room to room. Nothing. Nobody. But while he was inside, standing in their living room, her phone buzzed. Motion detected. Upstairs hallway. She was watching the neighbor on the downstairs camera at that exact moment. He was nowhere near the stairs. She tried to end the vacation early. She told her husband she wanted to go home, and she couldn't explain why in a way that didn't sound crazy, and he didn't want to cut a paid-for trip short over a glitchy app. So they argued about it in a hotel room 500 miles from a house that was filling night by night with something they couldn't see. She asked the neighbor to go back and check a second time. He said no. He wouldn't say exactly why, only that he'd rather not go in there again after dark, and that the last time, standing in their living room, he'd had the powerful, unshakable feeling that he was not supposed to be counted. That was the word he used. Counted. She didn't ask him what he meant. The alerts came every night after that, and they got worse. A closet door that was shut in one clip, standing open in the next. A kitchen chair that moved over the course of 3 nights, from the table to the middle of the floor to the foot of the stairs. And then, on their last night away, the cameras started going offline, one by one, in the same order as the footsteps. Living room, kitchen, stairs, hallway. Each one's last clip the same. A few seconds of the dark, quiet room, and then a hand rising up into the frame from below, reaching toward the lens. And then nothing. They drove home in a silence I can't imagine. And when they walked in, everything was in place. Every door locked, every window shut, the chairs where they belonged, the house exactly as they'd left it, except the cameras. Every single camera in that house had been turned, gently, to face the wall. Turning a camera to the wall is one way to stop it from showing you something. The last man in tonight's stories had a stranger problem. His camera wasn't hiding anything from him at all. It was showing him everything, a few minutes before it happened. He was an insomniac, a guy who'd sit up half the night, and one of his little habits was watching his home security feeds on his laptop. Front door, driveway, kitchen, backyard, 4 little squares. He found it soothing, weirdly. The stillness of his own house, watched over while the world slept. One night he noticed something odd on the driveway camera. It showed his wife's car parked in the driveway, but he knew for a fact she wasn't home yet. She was on the late shift, still an hour out. He got up and looked through the actual window. The driveway was empty. Then he sat back down, confused, and about 4 minutes later, headlights turned in, and his wife's car pulled into the driveway and parked, in the exact spot the camera had already shown it. The feed was running ahead, a few minutes ahead of real life. He spent the next hour testing it, and it sounds insane, I know, but he was methodical about it. He'd watch the kitchen camera. He'd see himself on the feed get up and walk to the fridge and get a glass of water. And then, a few minutes later, he would feel the urge and get up and do exactly that. Walk to the fridge, get the water, while some part of his brain screamed that he was only doing it because he'd already watched himself do it. He couldn't tell anymore if he was choosing anything or just following the tape. Then he tried to break it. And this is the test that truly scared him. He watched the kitchen feed, and he saw his future self get up and walk to the fridge. And this time he decided, deliberately, with everything in him, that he would not do it. He would sit exactly where he was and prove that he still had a choice. He gripped the arms of his chair and he counted down the minutes. And when the moment came, the exact moment the feed had shown him standing, he stayed down. He did not move. He beat it. He actually laughed, out loud, alone, in relief. And then his phone buzzed on the desk. A motion alert from the kitchen camera. He looked at the live feed, and there he was, in the kitchen, at the fridge, getting a glass of water. Him, moving around that kitchen plain as day, while he sat frozen in his chair in the other room, watching himself do the very thing he had just refused to do. It was a strange, dizzy, sleepless night kind of horror. Not frightening yet, just wrong. Then, near 4 in the morning, the front door feed showed something new. The timestamp in the corner read a few minutes ahead, the way it always did now. And on the feed, he watched his own front door slowly swing open, and a figure stepped inside. Tall, dark. It came in through the door he knew was locked, and it walked toward the camera, toward the hall, toward where he was sitting. And just before it reached the lens, the recording cut to black. He had a few minutes. That was the thing. The feed was ahead, so he had a few minutes before whatever he'd just watched would actually happen. He ran to the front door. It was locked, deadbolt and all. He checked it twice. He stood there in the dark hallway with his heart in his throat, watching the seconds tick toward the timestamp he'd seen, and he waited to see if the future was a threat or just a broken machine. At the exact time on that clip, the deadbolt was still locked, and the handle on his front door slowly turned, back and forth, someone on the other side testing it, trying it. He did not wait to see if the door opened. He grabbed his keys and his wife, and he went out the back, and he did not stop driving until the sun came up. He never plugged those cameras back in. He never found out whether that door opened or who was on the other side of it, or how a machine could show him a thing before it happened. But he told me the part that he can't let go of, because he went back once and watched that last recording again, the future clip, the one that cut to black, and he made himself watch the seconds right before the cut. The figure coming in, walking toward the hall, and in the corner of the frame, in the dark, you could just make out the chair where he'd been sitting, where he was supposed to still be sitting when the figure arrived. And in the future, the camera had shown him. He was still in it, not running, not gone, just sitting there in the dark, waiting for it, like he'd already decided not to leave. That's all for tonight. If these ones got to you, do me a favor before you close the app, subscribe and turn on the bell. There's a brand new true horror story here every single night, and you won't want to miss the next one. Give it a like so it finds the next person watching alone in the dark, and share it with whoever put a camera up to feel safe. I'll be right here tomorrow night when the lights go down. Sleep well, if you can.
Like, share, and subscribe for daily horror stories every single day.